From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Folo. We begin in Venezuela, where the fugitive Colombian Senator Aida Merlano, now detained in Caracas, says that President Iván Duque is trying to kill her. Merlano arrived at the Palace of Justice in Caracas at her own request to give her account of her flight from Colombia and the electoral corruption scandal in which she is accused. She said she had evidence that implicated as many as half the members of Colombia's Congress in the buying and selling of votes. Details in this report.
The Aida Merlano case brought together Venezuelan, Colombian and international media. Venezuelan authorities had already stated that she had a large quantity of information and was willing to deliver it. So they held a special hearing. No one knew what she would say.
My desperation led me to make the decision to look for refuge in this country, as I am persecuted by the president of my country, Iván Duque, with the intention to kill me following the leak organized by a leading political class in the country.
Merlano denounced a plot to kill her, abuses and a ring of corruption which implicates all Colombian presidents from Uribe to Iván Duque. This led her to escape.
I was a witness to the high sums of money invested in these campaigns. They have been in charge of buying all the traditional political class in the region and are the largest contractors of the state and the largest financiers of the presidential campaigns of recent years. We could say approximately 20 years old here, long before the Uribe campaign or since the first president of Álvaro Uribe Vélez.
Merlano discovered $1 million operation within Colombian politics. She says she has a wide range of evidence in the form of video, audio, contracts, and public tenders, which implicate Colombian politicians.
I know the amount which was given and to whom it was given, and I also know what each congressman manages and how much was invested in each presidential campaign to receive bribes.
Merlano doesn't trust the Colombian justice system and fears for her life. She asked for help from the Bolivarian government to protect her and take the case to international bodies.
I ask the president of this country to please, this case must be taken to the international courts and bodies. Please help me because I am the victim of the government of the Republic of Colombia, headed by Iván Duque.
A new political scandal for Colombia, this time looming over the Caribbean coast of Colombia and the Nariño Palace in Bogotá, with effects which could devastate the political class.
Meanwhile, Fox Senator Sandra Ramirez has called for the revival of an anti-corruption law following Merlano's statements.
Look, the very important statements Ms. Aida Merlano is giving in Venezuela should have been given here in Colombia. Here, we need these statements so that we can be proceeding against the political class of the coast, especially since they are so closely linked to corruption. We carried out an anti-corruption consultation in which more than 11 million Colombians voted for a bill in favor of transparency in elections, transparency in states' acts, against the corruption in this country. And Aida Merlano is simply saying that this is exactly what has happened. She represents the political class of our country, and she had to flee to other country and even ask for protection there because she is in danger here.
Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Venezuela on Thursday night on the last leg of his Latin American tour, having visited Cuba and Mexico. He was received at the Maiquetía International Airport by his Venezuelan counterpart, Jorge Arreaza. Lavrov will hold meetings with Vice President Delcy Rodriguez before being received by President Nicolas Maduro. Discussions will center around the strengthening of the two nations' strategic alliance. Over the last 2 decades, Venezuela and Russia have improved their bilateral relations, signing hundreds of cooperation agreements in areas such as energy, the economy, technology, industry, and the military. Now, Lavrov was previously in Mexico, where he has been holding talks with Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard. Russia and Mexico are keen to increase their trade, which is currently worth $2.3 billion a year, making Mexico Moscow's second trading partner in Latin America after Brazil. The two foreign ministers reasserted their support for dialogue and a peaceful solution in Venezuela, where Lavrov will meet with President Maduro. He began his tour with a stop in Cuba on Wednesday.
We both think that a dialogue is necessary with the objectives to, but as to change any regimen, this would be an imposure of foreign models. We have spoken of, we have heard calls from Washington that there are no options. And they are threatening on using every option on the table. They are organizing the provocation. But this is not our posture. This is not the posture of our Mexican allies. We believe in dialogue, and this way all parties can have the possibility to find a solution that are a win-win situation.
Bolivia's former vice president says the MAS party is working on winning the upcoming elections in the first round. Alvaro Garcia Linera, Evo Morales' vice president, was giving a lecture in Mexico City.
It's going to be an unequal and very difficult campaign, but it's clear that there's just one left-wing force in this electoral scenario. There are some polls already out there. We haven't done any polls of our own, but we are in first place. The right-wing forces are fragmented, and that helps our campaign. And our objective is to win in the first round of elections, because winning in a second round will be much more complicated. We want to reach that 40% threshold. And the candidacy of Luis Arce and David Chokwe Huanca aims to unite rural and urban sectors and the strongest social basis among the indigenous and campesino communities.
In Bolivia, parties and political fronts have been warned that the breach of the gender parity requirements, which guarantee the participation of equal numbers of women and men on the list of candidates, could have repercussions for parties.
Gender parity within Bolivia's elected offices has been reached because of a law which requires political parties to submit lists of candidates with equitable representation of men and women.
If the political organizations do not comply with the parity and alternation criteria, they must also make changes to the list.
A first review of the lists of candidates for presidency, vice presidency, deputies and senators revealed that only one of the 8 enabled alliances and parties actually complied with that obligation.
The lists are entered into a computer system which identifies immediately if the parties are meeting the parity requirement. Once the computer system launches an alert that the parity was not being complied with, the Supreme Electoral Court goes on to the next phase to review the requirements.
The law guarantees gender parity by requiring parties to run the same number of male and female candidates. The variation guarantees, for example, that if a woman heads a candidature, a male must follow her and vice versa. For all elected office, non-compliance may lead to sanctioning.
If at any time the parity requirement is not met, the Supreme Electoral Court has a mandate and obligation to alert the parties, because the penalty that must be applied by the Supreme Electoral Court is the non-admission of the complete list of candidatures.
In the upcoming May 3rd elections, in accordance to the guidelines on parity and alternance, 36 senators and 130 lower house members and a similar number of substitutes will be elected. Voters will also cast ballots for the presidency and vice presidency of the country, positions in which this criteria is not mandatory.
Coming up, Jamaica's parliament receives a minor shakeup. Stay with us and you'll find out why.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis, and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en él.
Dotting the I. Saturdays, only on Venezuela.
Welcome back. In Jamaica, residents of Clarendon South East will vote for a new Member of Parliament following the resignation of Rudyard Spencer 12 months before general elections are constitutionally due in February 2021. On Wednesday night, Spencer told the Parliament he was stepping down from representational politics with immediate effect. He served Jamaica as an MP for 18 years and was State Minister in the Ministry of National Security. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has since announced that nomination day is February 12th, with a by-election on March 2nd. It has been almost a week since the United Kingdom left the European Union. There won't be any dramatic changes till the end of the year, the deadline for the UK to negotiate new trade agreements with its former EU members. But how will Brexit affect the Caribbean, a region that had major trade connections with the UK through the EU? Now, on Thursday, we spoke about this issue with Earl Huntley, who is a former CARICOM ambassador to Haiti and foreign affairs expert.
The Caribbean countries are part of the ACP group, who have the Cotonou Agreement with the EU, which is at the moment being in the stage of renegotiation. So that relationship with the EU will continue under the terms of the new Cotonou Agreement. Where Britain's absence in the EU will affect the Caribbean is that Britain in the EU was a voice for the Caribbean. So that in terms of the negotiations, we don't have the kind of supportive partner that we had when Britain was there. Now that Britain is out of the EU, the second aspect is really our relationship with Britain, because as you said, bananas and other exports go to the UK. So it means that the Caribbean countries will now have to work out a new trading arrangement, new trading relationship with Britain now that it is out of the EU. And one would hope that CARICOM as a body would negotiate such an arrangement with the UK. But I think they would still have favorable deals because they are negotiating together with the African and Caribbean countries, although they are separate EPA agreements. But I don't think, while yes, Britain's voice would help us, but I still think that we'll be able to get a good deal out of the EU, given our experience with them and the years of partnership with the European Union. Ironically, though, our trading arrangements with the UK, the preferential arrangements that we had from many years ago, were first affected by Britain's going into the EU. And those arrangements had to be adjusted when Britain went to the EU. Now that Britain is out, it means, of course, that those trading relations now have to be readjusted, both at the EU level and with Britain. St. Lucia exports bananas. St. Lucia is the only one left in the world exporting bananas to the UK, and they're struggling to maintain a hold in the market in terms of the volume of the exports that we send to the EU, to Britain. But the other countries, like Trinidad and Grenada, who export to the UK, I don't think they will be adversely affected if we are unable. Let me backtrack. The only way they will be adversely affected is if we are not able to get good terms of trade with the UK. And I'm expecting that, given our relationship with the UK, our relationship in the Commonwealth, that we would be able to maintain favorable terms with the UK.
Shifting gears now, oil workers in Brazil are continuing their strike against the privatization and labor reforms promoted by the government of President Jair Bolsonaro. More details in this report.
Brazil's biggest company, Petrobras, has its headquarters in this building in Rio de Janeiro. Inside, 5 leaders of the Oil Workers Union have been occupying a meeting room since last Friday. Outside, members of social movements, workers and relatives stage a vigil in support of the 5 leaders.
They are defending our country. They are the guardians of our country's sovereignty. Defending Petrobras means defending a public and democratic Petrobras.
The occupation of the meeting room, the marches around 12 states with 17,000 workers are part of the Petrobras workers' strike that started on February the 1st. Patrick Fernandes is one of the thousands of workers laid off by Petrobras after the closure of a plant in the south of the country. Workers denounce this measure as illegal, since massive layoffs without consultations with the unions is forbidden by an agreement signed between the company and the workers in 2019.
We tried to negotiate on different occasions with the public ministry and through other channels, but the company has not backed down and maintained its decision to close the fertilizer plant with a massive layoff of 1,000 workers, 1,000 families that are left with no support.
Other relatives of the laid-off workers traveled almost 900 kilometers from the south to reach Rio and are camping out near the company offices. For them, the actions to dismantle Petrobras seek to further promote the privatization of Brazil's most important company.
Petrobras belongs to us workers. We can't let something that belongs to all Brazilians be sold by the president, so that companies from other countries can profit from it. We are the ones who will suffer from the sale of Petrobras.
The strike movement has organized the sale of cooking gas at a fair price in 4 Brazilian states. It's a way of criticizing the policy of subordinating prices to the international market with no benefits for local consumers.
It is important that Petrobras serves the Brazilian people with a fair price policy, so that Brazilians are able to pay for cooking gas, gasoline and diesel, and that these prices don't push up the cost of basic goods.
According to the workers, the strike will continue until the company suspends the layoff of the workers and fulfills the collective agreement signed.
We're taking one last break. When we return, is the Democratic Party's Iowa caucus finally finished with the results? Join us for those details in a minute.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders has declared victory in the Democratic Party's Iowa caucus after the results were delayed by 4 days. Tallies trickled in on Thursday, showing a near tie between Sanders and the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, who also proclaimed himself the winner. A frustrated Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez called for a recanvass in order to assure public confidence in the results. But the Iowa Democratic Party said it would only conduct one if a candidate requests it.
Thank you all very much. I'm confident that we're going to do really well here in New Hampshire, having won Iowa. We're going to do very well in Nevada. I think we're going to do a lot better than people think in South Carolina. I think we've got a good shot to win California. And bottom line, I believe that we are well positioned to win the Democratic nomination and to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country.
A brawl has broken out in Ukraine's parliament over a controversial bill that could put the country's fertile farmland up for sale from October. Around 15 lawmakers from the ruling party and their opponents pushed each other near the rostrum as the legislature struggled to conduct a second and final reading of the land reform bill. Ukraine has around 32.5 million hectares of arable land, and some critics fear the proposed legislation would allow rich nationals to land grab, while others will be shut out. Meanwhile, hundreds protested outside the parliament as the raucous took place. On Thursday, Spanish President Pedro Sanchez visited Catalan President Quim Torra at the Catalonian governmental palace in Barcelona. Our correspondent Joan Ortiz brings us the details of a meeting which is considered the prelude of more definitive negotiations.
The Parliament has already decided that the land will be sold to the foreign banks as well. That is why only a referendum, a national referendum, may solve the problem of what to do with the land. Everything else is profanation and deception of Ukraine.
They are trying to pull these shameful laws that will put Ukrainians in equal circumstances with their national capital. Ukrainians will be left with no land, no jobs, and no territory.
The death toll from the new coronavirus outbreak in China has risen to 618 as scientists race against time to find a cure. Our correspondent Ramzi Peraza has the latest on the coronavirus from Beijing.
We are here at the outsides of the Generalitat Palace in Catalonia, where the Catalan President Quim Torra and the Spanish President Pedro Sánchez just met, and also where Sánchez was welcomed with utmost honors. This meeting represents a prelude to the round of negotiations between the Spanish and the Catalan authorities, which is expected to start very soon, but it's not yet clear on what date. Torra's government has stated that the goal of these negotiations would be to find a solution and mark an end to the political conflict between Spain and Catalonia. They have also stated that every subject and option should be discussed, including amnesty chances for Catalan political prisoners in Spain and the right for the people of Catalonia to self-determinate. Anyhow, just before this meeting, Madrid has issued a statement that has lowered the expectations. In the letter, Pedro Sánchez advocated for political dialogue and the restitution of institutionality, but it also mentioned some terms for the relationship with Catalonia that were very far from what Catalan pro-independence forces are demanding. Also, one of the conditions of the Catalan government for the negotiation was for the Spanish government to stop criminalizing pro-independence political activities. Sadly, this has not been the case, since Sánchez's government continues to issue arrest warrants against Catalan pro-independence leaders, supporters and activists. We will be here bringing you the details of this meeting and also the upcoming official negotiation process.
Now, the death toll from the new coronavirus outbreak in China has risen, as we mentioned before, to 618 as scientists race against time to find a cure. And that story has brought us to the end of this news brief. You can find these and more stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Doris Folo. Thank you for watching.